In this video, I'll be sharing a basic introduction to Photoshop, its tools, and how we can utilize it for designing repeat patterns. For tips and tricks on other software like Adobe Illustrator, look for our other videos shared on the Craft Hub platform. I'm working within the Surface Pattern and Textiles department at Swansea College of Art, utilising their range of specialised equipment across their studio for digital design. Adobe Photoshop is a powerful image editing software used by photographers, designers and artists to manipulate image. It has an extensive range of tools, and we will be focusing on a select few which will enable us to manipulate our artwork and put it into repeat. When we first open Photoshop, we'll use New File to create our document that I'll be working in. This is going to open a menu in which we can customize our size. So it gives us some options, and we can come over here to change. It's kind of natural to come more to like centimeters or millimeters, depending on what you're working for. And we can change our width, our height, and our resolution. Resolution is a really important part of the design process using Photoshop. You may also hear it called PPI, or pixels per inch, as it represents the number of image pixels assigned to each inch. A high resolution image will have more pixels per inch, and it's best practice to start out high, as if you try to make it higher later on, you get a grainier, lower quality image. For reference, 72 is usually great for screen resolution, so artwork that's going to only be viewed on a screen. But if we want to print out our artwork, see it physically, it's better to go for a higher resolution. Around 300 and above is technically what I tend to stick to. We're going to first create the workspace we'll be using for our repeat pattern. Patterns traditionally have set sizes, and these change for their use. Fashion print designs are typically smaller, ditzy, 10 centimeter squares. Larger prints used for interiors, etc. are around 32 centimeter squares and can be bigger. The important part is that our design is square for this process. So what I'm going to be doing is making a 32 by 32 centimeters square workspace. So I'll put 32 as my width, 32 as my height, and I'm going to make this 300 dpi so that we've got a really good resolution image, and click create. And that's going to open our workspace and our document. Navigating the workspace will become easier the more you experiment with Photoshop, but to really quickly navigate, we can move around our workspace by using the hand tool over here, clicking on our workspace, holding and dragging to move around if we want to see different areas. And we can zoom in and out by using the magnifying tool over on the left, clicking on our document and dragging to the left and to the right to zoom in and out. To do a quick look over our workspace, over on the left we have a lot of different tools that we can use in Photoshop, and if we hover over these, it gives us a quick description, its shortcut button on the keyboard, and if we have a little arrow on it, we can hold and click and it'll bring up alternative tools. Our top bar changes depending which tool we have selected, as you can see when I navigate through my tools. And over on the right, we have some different preset tabs open. Some important ones are our color, our properties to change elements in our designs, and our layers panel. Layers are fundamental to designing in Photoshop and allow us to work on different elements of our artwork independently of each other. We begin with this background layer, which is our white square that we work onto. And if we want to add new layers, we can do so with the button down here with the plus in it. And I can add as many layers as I wish. We can change the order of these layers to move around our artwork if needed by clicking and holding on our layer, dragging and letting go when we want to move the order. And we can also keep everything nice and organized by renaming our layers by double clicking on the text. Navigating around layers will be easier the more you start to add bits in and try to figure out how you're going to reorganize and layer your artwork, and it becomes quite intuitive after you've been quite experimental with it. We'll be focusing on a very select few tools in this video to help you understand the process, and these will be our move tool, our selection tools, our blending modes, which are found down by our layers, and the pattern preview tool, which is in view and pattern preview. I'll start by pulling in a painting that I've done in watercolor and that I've scanned and now have a JPEG of on my computer for use. So we'll go up to File and Open to bring in an image. And I'm going to just select my JPEG and open it, and it's going to bring that up in a new tab. So you'll see that I now have two tabs. I have my original pattern file, which we're going to leave as it is for now, and we're going to work on our new tab with my JPEG. Commonly, if you open JPEGs, they can sometimes be locked, so if we try and move it, we'll get an error message. So if we come over here and just unlock it, we can start working on this now. So as we can see, if I try and move it around, I'm using my Move tool up here. Photoshop generally auto locks onto this one when we start moving things around. If you don't get these little white boxes on your screen, up here at the top, you just have to click Show Transform Controls, and that can be quite helpful for when we're moving things around and resizing them. So we've got our image, and now we need to start thinking about how we're going to manipulate it and change it ready for use in a pattern. So we can see that it's got this white background, and we might not want that. I might want to change the background to a different color, which I think would be quite nice. So we're going to think about how we can remove that background. And this is where our selection tools come in. Typically, if we've just got a full-on pattern or just an image we want to copy straight out, we can use our basic marquee tools. So by using these, clicking, holding and dragging over our images, this allows us to create a selection, and the selection is shown by this dotted line. And that means that everything in this selection is going to be either copied out or we can use it to put into something else. But we don't want this giant box and we don't want the white background. So a handy tool is up here in our lasso tool. If we click and hold, it brings us to our magnetic lasso tool. And what this allows us to do is go in real close, and with lovely lines like this, we can very accurately cut out our image as if we're using a scissors on paper, cutting it out and removing that background. So we're going to select our tool, click on a point on our image to start, and it makes this box. And as we just hover and drag our mouse, it starts making these little boxes. So we want to keep hovering over that line, and it's just going to keep following us and making our selection. If we get to tight corners, we can click to make a box manually and then keep going. So I'm going to keep going up here. And if we make a mistake like I have here and we're missing a bit of my image, you can just use the backspace tool to delete some of these boxes and then fix where you missed. So I'm going to keep going down here, and I'm getting close to the bottom of my screen, and I might want to move down so I can see the bottom of my screen. But if I go get my move tool, I'm making more selections. So if I go back, we can use keyboard shortcuts to make our lives a little bit easier in this circumstance. So if I hold spacebar, that opens my move tool as a temporary kind of key. And I can click and hold and drag and move down, and then when I let go, I'm back to my selection tool. So right as I come to the edge, before I come to my first selected box, I'm going to keep going. And then just as I come back to the beginning, you can see that just in there on my actual selection tool mouse, there's a little circle pops up. And when we click when that circle pops up, it creates our selection because we've closed that path. And if I zoom out, we can see that my entire artwork is selected. So now that I've made my selection, we can copy this out into our workspace that we set up earlier to start formatting it into a pattern. So just making sure that I've still got this layer selected, I'm going to go up to our top bar, edit, and copy. And then we're going to go back into our other tab, right back up to edit and paste. And that will exactly copy and paste our selection into our new workspace. So now we've got it in, we might want to move it around, change its size, rotate it, and we do this using our Move tool. So we click our Move tool and then it gives us freedom to move this around. If we want to scale it up or down, we can use these small squares on the edge of our artwork image. And by clicking, holding, and dragging these, we can make it bigger or smaller. And by hovering over the edge, it brings up these two curved black arrows and we can rotate our image. The first simple tool is adding colour. If we'd like to change the colour of our background, we can use the paint bucket tool found over here. It's important to make a new layer for our colour, so we're going to go down here, create a new layer, and then just make sure that sits underneath our image by moving it down there. And then we can go up to the right and select our colour. We can drag our mouse around on this colour box to pick our shade, and then use the slider on the right to pick the basic colour. So I'm going to go for like a nice green for our background, and we get a little preview of the colour up here. So once we've picked our colour, we make sure our layer is selected, we've got our paint bucket tool selected, and we click on our workspace, and that will fill our layer with colour. And if that's not the right kind of colour we want, we can take it lighter and then just drop that colour in over the top, and that fills our background with colour. Another immediate way to add blocks of colour to our layers is by using the marquee tool, which we touched on earlier. We can use the marquee tool to create selections, so we can create selections with it and then drop colour into it by using the bucket tool. So when I drop colour in, it stays within that selection boundary and doesn't go outside. And then we have interesting areas of colour. There are many ways to manipulate and change artwork in Photoshop, but a really fun and immediate way to do this is by using layer blending modes, which are found down here in this drop-down menu. If we select our artwork and then select our drop-down and then hover over these, it's going to give us a preview of what these layer modes will do. Some are really subtle, like multiply, which adds just like a translucent layer over the top, or they can be quite overstated and drastic, such as hard light. But experimenting with these can be a really fun way to create something completely new from the artwork you brought in initially. We're also able to change the opacity of our layers just to the side of our blending modes. So if we select our artwork, we can use the slider to drop the opacity down to barely there, or bring it back up to fully opaque. This can be really useful in layering artwork, creating interesting contrasts of colour and motif. These basic tools can be combined together with additional artwork to start creating exciting compositions. I'm just bringing in an additional watercolour painting that I've done and prepared off screen to combine with this one. This will give us more to work with, and we'll start looking at the pattern preview option. Pattern preview essentially creates the whole workspace into a repeat. We can turn it on by going up to View and Pattern Preview. As we can see, this has drastically changed our screen. Essentially, it repeats out the 32 by 32 centimeter square we've started with, and we can see by that faint blue line. Anything that we put within this square or on the edges will be repeated out by this function. From here, it's all about experimentation. We can bring in more elements, duplicate artwork, move things around, and be really playful with the layer modes and see what we can create. You can see when I start to move things around, Photoshop immediately starts adjusting that repeat and bringing those elements into repeat. We can zoom out to see a full length of the repeat and zoom in to see exact details. But from here, it's all about experimentation. So here is my finished pattern design. After using all the tools we've discussed, all the blending layers, all the manipulation techniques, this is what I've ended up with. And I've also made 2 alternate designs, which I can show you here. So here's my first, here's my second, and here's my third. Now they're all radically different, and using those blending layers and all those lovely techniques we've been discussing through this video has enabled me to create those 3 different patterns. And now we can use Photoshop's final pattern technique, which is by going up here to edit and then define pattern. And that's going to give us the option to name our pattern. So I'm going to name this Orange Blossom 1. And what this is going to do is it's going to add our pattern to a catalogue. So if we go to a new page, we can come down here to the Layers tab and Adjustment Layers, clicking here and selecting Pattern, which allows us to open this catalogue and fill our space with pattern. And I select the one I've just added, and we can scale it right down or scale it really, really blown up to fit the space. We can move it around, and then when we press OK, it's added to our space. And here are those other 2 we designed as well. So at the end, we've learnt how to navigate Photoshop using basic tools, layer options and manipulation techniques to create exciting repeat patterns. We can take these on to work with them digitally, but we're also going to finish up by seeing these printed physically. The benefits of creating repeat patterns are found in when we want to put them to use. We can easily scale them up and down and format them for ready for any purpose, printed onto textile lengths and used for other projects, or printed onto other materials. They really come to life when taken out of the digital space, and we've created a surface pattern that we can continue to reuse, rework and share with others. You can often find areas that could use work in your patterns when you see them physically, and the last key takeaway is to continually push for improvement, learning through the creative, playful process when you turn your basic sketches and ideas into seamless masterpieces. To explore more tutorials like these, take a look on the Craft Hub platform.